Walmart employees, what's the most Walmart thing you've ever seen at an actual store? Had to convert surveillance video footage to DVD for an attorney a while back. Was footage of a lady, clear as day, cracking open a bottle of olive oil, pouring some out on the floor, then putting on a nearby shelf. She then looks around and walks over to the spill and slips and falls. So funny to watch. It was one of those projects where I was calling people over to my desk. You gotta see this. Some dickhead set a dump bin full of energy pillows on fire. Store filled up with noxious yellow smoke. Fun times. I worked at Walmart in the garden department, briefly in the early 90s. I'm going to take a break and walk past the deodorant aisle and I see this huge guy, maybe 350 pounds, in a wife beater, put on some deodorant, put the cap back on, and put it back on the shelf. Told my manager about it, and he said it happens all the time. Not much of a story, but I work in the deli, and routinely an absolute giant of a man, width and height, comes in and buys all of my hot wings. I don't exaggerate when I say this guy's an easy 7 feet, because I'm 6 feet 2 and this gentleman absolutely towers over me. I fear the day when we run out of the spicy goodness and he vaporizes me with his immense strength. We had to ban a guy once for taking the motorized scooter into the family washroom, get wasted, and cheat his pants. Edit. Yes, I realize I worded this poorly, but it makes me giggle, so I'm going to leave it like that. When I used to work there, I was standing at the front once, and an old man came up to me with his sheet covered underwear in his hand saying he had an accident. Then I followed a sheet trail all the way to the washroom where it looked like a sheet bomb went off. I worked maintenance there. One day I was out retrieving carts when loss prevention called out for help. She caught our pharmacist stealing a bottle of dish detergent. He struggled hard, way harder than the situation called for. During the struggle, pharmacist's jacket came off and numerous pill bottles scattered across the parking lot. He had a good scam ruined by a $2 bottle of dish soap. My mom worked at Walmart for about a year. She actually liked it as she was more active, but she decided to quit after the jewelry department manager had a meltdown and started throwing jewelry at customers. One old lady got pelted in the head with a heavy ring box, and it was over. Turns out the manager was selling the jewelry to friends and family, but would keep the boxes and stuff them with rocks and trash, so inventory would stay the same. She had the meltdown before she was caught. I worked at another, similar retail store until yesterday, and literally yesterday a woman left her severely mentally disabled son alone in the store for over an hour. I ended up hanging with him to make sure he didn't hurt himself or someone else. Mom was nowhere to be found until I was complaining about it to a coworker, and suddenly she is right there looking indignant that someone dare question her parenting methods. Oh hey, I have a similar story. The kids weren't disabled, but a mom came and dropped her 2 sons, I would guess they were maybe 5 and 8 years old, off at my GameStop while she went to shop at the Walmart across the road. She left them there for 3 ducking hours. One of them pulled over a 4-way shelf by climbing on it and nearly crushed his brother, so I made them leave because I couldn't deal with the possibility of one of them hurting themselves. I told them to go across the road and go talk to the greeter at Walmart and that he'd help them find their mom, because they weren't allowed to stay in my store anymore. Mom came back a little while later to yell at me for daring to make her children cross the road by themselves. I threatened to call CPS on her for child abandonment. I worked in a neighborhood market in Tennessee. One day a heavy storm rolled in as I was pushing carts. As I was pushing in my last row, I saw a man walking towards the entrance, and since it was raining it looks like he was wearing a white suit with yellow polka dots. I go inside, turns out it's a very thin SpongeBob Onishi. He wasn't wearing underwear. It was not a good day for my eyes. I lived close enough to work to go home for lunch. On the way back, I turn off the highway onto the feeder street in front of Walmart, and Suv comes barreling out of nowhere, blows through a stop sign, cuts me off, and speeds into Walmart parking lot. He pulls up to the front and parks. Not in a parking space, literally in front next to the entrance doors. I park and start walking in to clock him, anxious to see the douche behind the wheel. Out steps a dude with no shirt, wearing shorts and high heels. Goes straight to the tobacco checkout, gets cigarettes and leaves. I once worked in the fabric/sewing department and was asked to cover hardware while the guy was on break. I wasn't trained on how to mix paint, so worst case scenario I'd bother the guy if need be. Easy enough, right? Not even 10 minutes later, an older, 65 plus, customer comes up asking about a vacuum in the aisle. I go to see if I can assist him with questions. He asks if he can open it and try it out in store. I say no. He opens it and starts assembling it right in front of me. Of course, this is the moment my coworker comes back to find me staring dumbfoundedly at this old man. Edit. Just to elaborate, the exact question he asked me was, "Will this work on carpet?" I said yes. He then asked if he could open the box and try it on our non-carpeted floor. I politely said no. Then he proceeded to open it without skipping a beat. This is old, so I'm probably wasting my time. But I worked in the garden center at a Walmart, and we had our own gate entrance as many other garden centers do. Since we had our own entrance, we had our own greeter. Let's call him Dale. Dale was in an electric wheelchair and was a Vietnam vet. He had an accident after the war that involved his neck, so he was pretty much a quadriplegic, but his arms did work a little and he could check receipts with them. Dale took nobody's sheet, so we would always duck with him to get him going. Our favorite move was to sneak up on him when he was sleeping and jack up his wheelchair with a pallet jack so he couldn't go anywhere. Dale took his job very seriously, and one day someone tried the old Walmart Dash with a big ass stereo system, but they had no car waiting outside. I'm pretty sure they figured they could get out of our door because of Dale's condition and all, but little did they know they was ducking with the baddest employee Walmart had. Dale tore after this guy through the parking lot with his chair, nipping the backs of his heels with the metal footrests. The guy had no choice but to ditch the massive box and full on sprint away from our attack quadriplegic. Dale then got in front of the box and pushed it with his footrests all the way back to the store as happy as he could be. R.I.P. Dale. I worked at Walmart a long time ago. I once saw an older man in his mid-40s, 250 pounds, walking around in construction boots, Daisy Dukes, and a pink belly shirt. At least he was confident. I also had someone cheat in the middle of the shoe aisle, then left a trail of sheet from there to the front doors, and then threw their dirty underwear in a bush. So happy I didn't have to clean that up. I was there getting an eye exam in the vision center, and when I walked by one of the rooms, there was an old man eating a piece of fried chicken while he got his eye exam. I remember one time close to close, these two guys come in. I didn't mind. The guys were usually quick and only wanted food. To my surprise, they come to my cash, and one had shoes in his hand and a tag. Whatever. I notice he's really jovial and couldn't stand still longer than 2 seconds. Finally figure out he's completely wasted. The other guy was his friend and thankfully sober. Drunk guy excitedly says he's wearing the shoes he bought, so that's why he's carrying his other ones and has the tag. Well, that's no big deal to me. People do that all the time. So I said okay and wasn't really paying attention to what my screen said and politely said, "May I put your shoes in a bag with that tag? Just in case." Yeah. What an awesome idea. Thanks. He paused and started bouncing like a little kid. "Can I show you my new shoes? Can I? Can I?" His friend shrugged and shot me a look. Well, seemed harmless, right? I said, sure, to humor him. He then shows me pink slippers. No kidding. I stared and then pasted a smile. Yeah, they're nice. He's absolutely giddy with excitement, and just as I was going to point out something, he grabs the bag after paying and shouts thank you. Then proceeds to run outside as happy as can be, in the pouring rain. Not that this is really PLAFWMAD specific, but hey, I've been catcalled in the daytime while working. I worked in the produce section, so I had on those green aprons and my hair up in a ponytail. Know what's great? The look on a guy's face when he realizes he just whistled at my as while I was stocking shelves. Except I'm a dude. I've been missed, mammed, darlined. Hey hot stuffed. My time to ducking shine. I knew those 4 years at Walmart would pay off eventually. I worked the service desk, so I dealt with / saw some of the most epic people of Walmart bullshit imaginable. 1. Close bracket. I had a couple attempt to return a half empty and exceptionally sticky bottle of Kai because it didn't work. It still hurt when he put it in my butt. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds holding a half-used bottle of lube that was bought and used to shove something up this woman's as before I regretfully informed them that I couldn't possibly process this return. I handed them their lube back and then went to the bathroom to dry heave and wash my hands. 2. I had a middle-aged guy come in and ask for a paper job application because for whatever reason he didn't feel comfortable using the online kiosk. Okay, whatever, it's his slow night and I don't have shit to do. I scrounged up a paper application and he started to fill it out at the desk. We shot the sheet while he was filling it out. He was funny and we had the same taste in books. Once he got to the question, have you ever been convicted of a felony? He paused and asked me if he should answer that honestly. I told him yes, because if ours ran his name and found something then he would be ineligible for hire since he lied. He then proceeded to tell me he had been convicted of a felony. I shrugged. What the duck ever, dude? Welcome to the Walmart freak family, homie. And it was a 6th crime, he says. Well, crimes. At this point I take a step back. Oh, don't worry, I only grade guys so you're fine, he said and calmly went back to filling out his application as my eyebrows met my hairline. 3. We had a customer, we called her Huffy because she would come in and huff the aerosol dust remover that people use to clean their keyboards, get high, and then pass out in the bathroom for a few hours. I should also tell you that at the end of our parking lot was a small grassy median, and on the other side of the median is a Burger King. Remember this note. Well, management and loss prevention got tired of Vol Huffy coming in and stealing dust remover and taking up valuable bathroom space. So the next time she came in, a manager and a loss prevention associate were in her like flies on sheet. Somehow, that while Yol Huffy was able to partake in a few cans of dust remover before the 2 associates moved in. Once Huffy saw 2 employees walking towards her, she took off, with Walmart's best giving chase. I'm not sure why they chased her honestly. It was probably a slow day for them. The electronics worker who saw this all go down got on his walkie and radioed us up at the front. Sheets going down, and it's moving towards you. I didn't have anybody at the desk, so I moved out on the floor just in time to see Huffy and the 2 associates streak through the doors like bats out of hell. I ran to the door because I'm not one to miss a sheet show. I saw Huffy get in her car and make a break out of the parking lot, clipping to cars as she made her escape, leaving two-winded Walmart workers watching her drive off into the sunset. Now believe it or not, but someone who has just huffed 2 cans of dust remover isn't the best driver. I watched the car start to swerve halfway down the parking lot, then straighten out as Huffy gunned it. She jumped the median and slammed her car through the back wall of the Burger King, coming to the stop in the vicinity of the kitchen. Hands down one of the better attempts to escape the long arm of the Walmart law I've seen. Edit. Thank you to the kind souls who gifted me gold and silver. Who knew that the terrible stories from my most emotionally traumatizing job would be the thing that finally got me gilded. When I worked there was a dancer or waitress, likely the former, who always came in with tons of $1 bills. She was problematic, so I tried to avoid being her cashier. One night I was the only one working, and she starts her order. It's pretty late, and she has her daughter who is playing with markers that the woman gave her to occupy her. She doesn't want to buy them. Couldn't if she wanted. They're scattered throughout the store. I scan tons of things, and we get to the end, and she doesn't have enough money. Q voiding items. Checking price. Putting them back on. I recall that she took off the diapers, but kept some superfluous stuff. We get to the end of her order, and she finally pays. I've got more than half her crap plus the mostly empty box of markers on the belt. I print her receipt twice, so I can take a look. She bought 12 items. It took a ducking hour. There were something like 40 voided items. Ridiculous. I worked at Walmart a few years ago. I don't really have many personal experiences with people like that, but one of my coworkers told me something that happened to him once. Apparently, some asshole customer took one of the mouse traps and hid it at the back of one of the shelves. Poor coworker reached in and got his hand caught in it. IDK if that's a people of Walmart thing or a people are scumbags thing, but it certainly didn't sound pleasant. I worked at one of the older Walmart stores, not Supercenter, back in 1998. I don't recall much of the customers, except Ms. Allen. Miss Allen was this elderly woman, whom everybody knew, who had a bad stutter. She apparently lived alone, and had really poor hygiene skills. Her hair was always frizzy, and she often smelled of terrible B.O. She would always put $100 or so worth of granny panties on layaway, pay her minimum deposit, 10% at the time, I think, then come back a month later, 60-day layaway, but it was recommended you make a payment in 30 days, didn't have to. But it was recommended, and cancel the layaway, not pay it off, cancel, as in get her money back. You were allowed up to 3 free layaway accounts at a time, which she did. She had been caught shoplifting a time or two at both the Walmart and at the Mart in the same town. She always carried this giant purse in the baby seat of the cart, big enough to probably smuggle out a TV. She was caught a few times trying to make off with the granny panties. When loss prevention and the local police department tried to question her, she'd try speaking with a really bad stutter, and they had to just let her go. I saw a cashier co-worker get arrested at her cash register for theft. She had been air scanning items and giving them away to her friends and family. When I worked as a cashier, someone gave me fake $100 so badly made the ink smeared. When I scratched the corner, I had to walk away from my register and notify the floor manager. To my surprise, the people didn't seem to understand what was happening and waited there until the cops showed up and arrested them. They literally did not move from the line. At one point asked me what the holdup was, and I even told them it was because their money was fake. Not a good idea, but these people were really dumb. I saw a man run from a loss prevention officer and get caught, and a woman came out of nowhere and attacked the loss prevention officer while screaming, "I'm pregnant." The cops came. She actually was not pregnant, but the wife of the man caught stealing. They were both arrested. I saw a dwarf security guard take a flying leap into and beat the living shit out of a 60-year-old black man in a Hawaiian shirt who was trying to steal about $600 worth of steak. The steak guy, he did this once a month or so. He would just fill up his shopping cart with steaks, briskets, pork ribs, etc. Head up to the front, act like he was going to check out, then barrel through the exit doors and dump it into a waiting truck. They never got a clear plate and were trying to catch him in the act. I was working my counter and heard behind me, "Sir, don't do it. Just step away from the cart." Walmart security is plain clothes and has no legal authority. They can detain you and defend themselves, but they can't restrain you. You can leave whenever you want, I believe, from what I remember. So I turn around and I see this guy with the shopping cart full of steaks, and he's looking cagey as hell. He's starting to stammer and come up with excuses while simultaneously trying to play it off. "Sir, just come with us, please." "Let go of the cart, sir." The guard trying to get him calm was the head of security there. He was a chill guy in his 30s, but built like a brick sheet house. You might think he was chubby if you looked at him. You wouldn't dream he could bench like 340 plus lbs. So the steak guy, he makes his break. He tries to blow past Chubb's McMuskles, and they end up going into a stack of DVDs. Then came Eric. Eric was I'm honestly not sure he would qualify as a dwarf, perhaps just a guy with a growing disability. He was about 4 feet tall, maximum. He would look like a 12-year-old except for the fact that he was completely ducking yoked. He was one of those just itching for action type guys. He seemed like he had something to prove. So Muscle Chubbs and Steak Guy are now down in the DVDs, and Steak Guy goes to get up, and here comes Eric. I'm probably wrong, but I swear in my mind I heard yeah, and the little ducker leapt through the air, both feet out, and just cannonballed this guy in the chest feet first. He went down again. I heard Chubbs yell "Eric, no," as he scrambled onto the guy's chest and just started throwing little hands into this dude's face. Just wham 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 wham. This is not what they teach you to do in Walmart security. Loss prevention, I think, is the official department. Eric was fired pretty much immediately. Walmart got sued, and they'd have been better off just letting the guy run out with the steaks. But boy, what a show. I worked at a Phoenix area Walmart in the late 2000s. We used to have a customer come in dressed head to toe in a baby outfit complete with a bonnet, a pacifier and adult diapers. It was a middle-aged white guy. The first time I ever saw him, I freaked out, but everyone else was like, oh, that's baby guy. Apparently he was a normal guy with a wife and a baby, and one day he just snapped and decided to live the rest of his life as a baby. He would pay people to come to his house and change him and feed him in a high chair, etc. He was a minor celebrity in the area before he passed away. If this says anything about the associates, just last week I was in the employee bathroom when another associate walked in. All the stalls were full, so he pissed in the sink, didn't wash hands, and left. I'm walking to my car. After I clock out, some guy pulls up beside me and asks, do you know where Walmart is? And I asked the supercenter, or I was about to ask him the supercenter or the other neighborhood market, and where I live there are 2 neighborhood markets and 1 supercenter, and he said no, a neighborhood market. Then I pointed to the big ass sign that says Walmart neighborhood market, and I told him you're at a neighborhood market. So he looks at the sign, and back at me, puts his thumb up, and says appreciate it, and drove out of the parking lot. Went to a Walmart on a Friday night at midnight in Missouri and immediately saw the most glorious mullet I have ever witnessed. Also a kid pushing a cart so full of Gatorade that the cart looked heavier than the kid. A family of very overweight people in their pajamas at 4 p.m. all on motorized carts.